An undersea explorer, oceanographer, marine biologist, inventor, and filmmaker who revolutionized undersea exploration. One man opened millions of eyes to what lies beneath the ocean's surface. With his iconic red beanie and famous ship Calypso, he dedicated his life to shedding light on the problems with our oceans today through his television series and countless films. His invention of the aqualung is considered one of the greatest innovations of his time. Jacques-Yves Cousteau, exploring the silent world. Born on June 11, 1910, in Saint-André-de-Cubzac, France, Jacques Cousteau's lifelong commitment to the ocean began when he joined the French Naval Academy in 1930, later going on to join the French Navy. It was with the French Navy that he developed many of his inventions regarding underwater travel. Jacques had plans to become a Navy pilot, but in 1933 a car crash nearly took his life. During rehabilitation, he took up daily swimming in the Mediterranean Sea, which opened his eyes to a whole new world. Developing a newfound love for the sea and all its inhabitants, he began his lifelong journey for ocean conservation. As World War II raged on in Europe, Jacques Cousteau took refuge in the town of Megrive, quietly continuing his underwater experiments. It was during this time that he met Emile Gagnon. Together, they created the aqualung, which allowed divers to stay underwater for longer periods of time. The aqualung was eventually used by both the French and the United States navies, leading to the development of our naval equipment today. After the war, the French Navy used the aqualung to clear underwater mines. The aqualung was truly revolutionary because it was the first diving equipment that allowed divers to freely swim without being attached to a boat. Divers had previously used large metal diving suits that often weighed nearly 200 pounds and were attached to the boat by a breathing tube. They could now move about longer and faster underwater, and it was in the creation of the aqualung that Jacques encountered a whole new world. None of Cousteau's later work would have been possible without this invention. It was while Jacques Cousteau was working on the aqualung that he created the first ever underwater camera. Although the footage produced from that camera wasn't high quality due to the behavior of light rays underwater, Jacques Cousteau tackled this feat using artificial lighting to produce the first ever colored underwater films. It was with this early camera that he produced his first documentary, titled Par d'Exut Metres de Fond, which means 18 meters deep. His film followed Frédéric Dumas, a pioneer of underwater fishing on the French Riviera. Frédéric had met Jacques Cousteau and Philippe Talliez in 1937, which led to 18 meters deep. In 1946, just after the end of the war, Jacques Cousteau produced his second film, Epaves, or Shipwrecks, in which they used the very first aqualung prototypes, which he'd begun creating with Emile Gagnon a couple years earlier. In 1950, he leased a British minesweeper and converted it into his new research facility named Calypso. From this boat, he would travel the world's oceans, producing documentaries and conducting countless new experiments. Jacques Cousteau began his work on the Calypso, but soon realized that he needed funding to continue onward. And so, Jacques turned to the media, producing a book in 1953 titled The Silent World, which was later turned into an award-winning film. The Silent World followed Jacques as he explored various aquatic habitats around the world. The movie showed people the beauty of the undersea world while also focusing on the appalling truths about the state of our oceans. Cousteau soon made countless other documentaries, some even going on to win Academy Awards. One of the films being World Without Sun, which took place in the Red Sea featuring an underwater living space. Another film being Voyage to the Edge of the World, which showed their 4-month expedition in Antarctica. Jacques Cousteau's next invention, which was featured in many of his films, was the diving saucer. This innovation greatly advanced underwater maneuvering. Originally titled SP-350, this device was created by Jacques and an engineer named Jean Mollard at the French Center for Undersea Research. Because it could stay hundreds of meters down for hours at a time, the diving saucer explored new parts of the ocean that had never been seen before. Although many supported the efforts of Jacques Cousteau and his team, there were many who also opposed him. Unlike many of his time, Cousteau got a first-hand look at how humans were destroying the oceans. In 1960, he started a campaign against a French government plan to dump nuclear waste in the Mediterranean Sea. Many of those who opposed him wanted to continue this for personal profit. In the end, Jacques Cousteau's campaign was a success, but Jacques didn't stop there in his fight for ocean conservation. He was also a part of the battle to end commercial whaling. In 1962, he created the very first underwater laboratory and housing structure named Conshelf. Located off Marseille, France at 10 meters of depth, Conshelf allowed oceanauts to live and work underwater for days or weeks at a time. Albert Falco and Claude Wesley became the first men to live underwater for a week. Conshelf was a success, and so Conshelf 2 was created in 1963. Residing in the Red Sea at 10 meters of depth, this new Conshelf allowed oceanauts to stay underwater for a month. The last of a series of conch shelves, Conch Shelf 3, was dropped 100 meters below the surface off the coast of Nice, France in 1965. 6 oceanauts lived and worked underwater for a total of 3 weeks. Overall, Conch Shelf showed that the capabilities of human beings stretch far beyond what was previously believed. Despite the overwhelming success of the conch shelves, they only further prove that humans are simply not designed to live in a world without sun. Nevertheless, these experiments were a predecessor to the training that astronauts receive today before leaving Earth. Jacques Cousteau premiered his first television special in 1966. 2 years later, he began his television series, The Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau, which ran for 9 seasons. Millions of people followed Cousteau and his crew on their adventures around the globe. Audiences at home encountered new life forms and habitats, all from the comfort of their living rooms. With his growing success, he founded the Cousteau Society in 1973, in an attempt to further inform the public about the deterioration of the ecosystems in the ocean. The Cousteau Society grew rapidly, soon gaining 300,000 members, and eventually they set out conducting expeditions all around the globe. Jacques Cousteau continued producing individual television specials all throughout the 1980s, but these shows carried a stronger message for ocean protection and conservation. However, Jacques' work was coming to a decline. On January 8, 1996, Calypso was accidentally rammed by a barge and sank in the Singapore harbor. Jacques tried to raise enough money to build a new ship, but he died unexpectedly in Paris on June 25, 1997, at the age of 87. Even today, Jacques Cousteau has not been forgotten. He changed the views of millions of people and introduced the world to the beauty that lies beneath the ocean's surface. His work as a conservationist is still continued today, with his children and grandchildren continuing his legacy. Jacques Cousteau's grandson, Fabien Cousteau, is not only an aquatic filmmaker like his grandfather, but he also manages dozens of ocean conservation efforts. And so, we reached out to him with our own questions about his grandfather. What was the most important work that he did?
Most important inventions that he had that most people don't even realize anymore is the aqua line. He didn't do it just to invent things. He had to invent all the tools because no one had ever done what he was doing. And in terms of the importance of what he gave to the world, I think really it's probably a consciousness for the ocean.
What was your grandfather like as a person?
Crazy. You have to be a little bit crazy to do what he did for all those years. I mean, he would go to places that were unknown. He would do things that were untested, things that were inherently very risky.
How have his works benefited the ocean?
His passion to really talk about, especially the last couple decades of his life, to make the world understand that this is the rights for future generations to enjoy the planet the way we've taken for granted, and how important it is to protect and conserve this ocean world, this environment that we depend on for everything.
How have his works inspired today's ocean conservation efforts?
A lot of ways. I think he motivated hundreds of millions of people and impassioned hundreds of millions of people around the world for over 50 years. And that has led to people wanting to become marine biologists, people wanting to make decisions in businesses that are more eco-conscious, people that actually go into government that really try and help. And there's still a lot of problems with these things, obviously, and there's still a lot of work to be done. But I think because of his work and people like him, we're now where we are. Just remember one thing: people protect what they love what they understand, and they understand what they're taught. And the way you teach people is through passion and love and caring and really just telling your story, whatever it is. Doesn't matter if it's environment or something else you're passionate about. Just remember that you have to be the leader. Can't wait for others to do it. And that's the only way things change.
Jacques Cousteau revolutionized modern ocean exploration and opened millions of eyes to the beauty of the undersea world.